make money on it, because I'm going to say right in here, they're property of Montgomery County. Today is Monday, April 15th, 1991. We're at the Lane Place here in Crawfordsville, doing another in a series of interviews with veterans of World War II. Helping myself, and I am Clare Chamberlain, associated and a member of the American Legion and the VFW. Our cameraman is Ed Miller, American Legion and VFW. Another gentleman who's been very active in this work is Bob Burley, a semi-retired attorney, a past president of the Montgomery County Historical Society, and now a director. Also helping is Mike Hall, who is the executive director right here in Crawfordsville at the Lane Place. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is another in a series of interviews with veterans of World War II. We've had several, and they've all been very, very interesting. These copies will be placed in the library. They are property of the Montgomery County Historical Society, and possibly they may later on as a group be copyrighted. Today we have with us a veteran of World War II who was in the Pacific and in the Marines. His name is Lawrence Grimes, and I might say right at the beginning that most Grimeses carry a nickname because of the old-time baseball player who they called Burley. And so throughout the discussion this morning, we'll be talking about and referring to Lawrence as Burley. So, welcome, Burley. I'm certainly glad that you were agreeable to having a visit with you about your experiences in World War II.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Clare.
Burley, where were you born?
Out at West Market Street, 1111. I think there's probably 2 apartment buildings there now.
Mm-hmm. Right here in Crawfordsville.
Right here in Crawfordsville, that's right.
Yeah. Who were your parents?
James A. Grimes and Dora Grimes, Dora Ellen Anderson, really.
Yeah. What was her maiden name?
Anderson.
Anderson.
Uh-huh.
I see. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters, really.
Mm-hmm. Are they living?
Well, part of them. I got one brother that's Austin, lived at Rochester, he's deceased. Mm-hmm. And another brother, Joel, that lived here in Crawfordville, and he's gone now. And one sister was killed at down on 47 when we lived down there on a farm south of Crawfordville, hit by an automobile.
I see.
And she's gone, and the other sisters and brothers are all living.
I see. Uh-huh. We'll get back to your family a little later on, Burley, as we get near the end of the interview. Where did you go to school?
Well, I lived here in Crawfordville for 5 years, then we moved to 10 miles south of Crawfordville on 47. Went to school at Brown Valley in the Brown Township School for 8 years, and then graduated Newmarket High School.
What year did you graduate from high school?
1936.
1936?
Yeah.
My goodness. Newmarket School was there until the 60s?
It's still there. They're going to tear it down this year, I guess, the one I went to.
Yeah. Did you play sports?
Yes, I tried to.
Tried to. What sports did you play?
All of them. Baseball and basketball.
I see.
Of course, we never had football then.
Mm-hmm. Well, you probably played baseball because of your nickname.
That's where I got it, pitching in Newmarket.
I see. Well, what else did you do? When you graduated from high school in 1936, then what did you do?
Well, after I graduated, I went to work for a farm out east of Brown Valley for Doc Beeson, who lived here in Crawfordville, owned a farm down there. I worked there. Freddie Whitecotton was rented the place, and I worked for him for 3 years. And then after that, I worked for Walter Whitecotton Carpenter around Crawfordville here. And then things got pretty tight, so we went to Indianapolis, a friend of mine. And then we got over there, we worked for a German by the name of Martin Blunk. Mm-hmm. He was in World War I. Mm-hmm. And we built homes out on 38th Street then. Mm-hmm. But in the wintertime, there wasn't much work. We had a cabinet factory. We worked in it.
Yeah, about what year would this have been?
I'd been in 39 to 42 till the war broke out. And I worked there on the farm, of course, 36 to 39 in Carpenter too. All here in the county.
Were you married at this time?
No, I didn't get married to the war. So.
Okay, we'll come back to that later then, Burley. Well, you're out of high school and you're working on a farm and doing carpentry work. How'd you happen to get in the Marines?
Well, they bombed Pearl Harbor and we were working in a cabinet factory in Indianapolis. And it just lined up on the telephone to enlist. We were all patriotic, I suppose. You know, the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor was a terrible thing, we all thought. So we enlisted.
Did you feel an urge to join?
Oh yeah,
Felt
sure did.
You had a duty to do.
Yeah, that's right.
About when was this?
That was January the 5th, 1942.
Where did you report?
Well, we enlisted there in Indianapolis, of course, where we were working. But we went to Parris Island, South Carolina, to boot camp. And we were there 6 weeks in boot camp, and then they sent us to North Carolina, Camp Lejeune, and we lived there in, they call it Tent City. And we were there till they shipped us overseas, maneuvering and going through all kinds of training to get ready to go over there.
What did your training consist of?
Well, we had all kinds, bayonet practice, we had a lot of that. And then we would cut timber out in the woods to represent the size of shells that we'd be using, load them aboard ship, and then haul them up to Chesapeake Bay, and unload them there and pile them up, and then just stay there for a while and load them back up and bring them back down. And we'd done that, I don't know how many times, landing in Higgins boats, loading all this equipment. And then they'd send us out to this obstacle course. Of course, we'd close order drill every morning. And then the obstacle course in the afternoon and take hikes. Long marches, 20 miles or so. And of course, the obstacle course, that represented a little bit of everything. We'd jump off of walls that represented going over the side of a ship, you know, which came in handy because we needed that later on.
How did you get from Camp Lejeune? Did you leave from the West Coast on a ship?
San Francisco.
How did you get from Camp Lejeune to San Francisco?
Well, we troop train.
On a troop train?
Yeah.
All Marines?
All Marines, yeah.
Was there a name for that expeditionary force or?
No, just 1st Marine Division.
1st Marine Division. I see.
And then we had several battalions attached to us, you know. I was a 17th Engineer Battalion, the one I was attached in.
I see.
And they had the 5th Marine and the 7th made up the division. Then they had a bunch of Raider battalions and paratrooper battalions attached to the division. But we weren't all in this one group. Part of them were already in San Francisco before I went.
What ship did you leave San Francisco on?
We went on, it was a Scandinavian luxury liner, they said, before the war. The name of it was Ericsson. And it traveled real slow. I think 12 knots or 13, about all we could do. And we left there, and it took us, I think, 30 or 32 days to get to New Zealand by going, you know how they zigzag through the water back in for submarines get after them, I guess. Yeah.
Did you have any encounter with the enemy, submarines or planes or anything?
If we did, I never knew if we did. I don't think we did. Till we got to New Zealand, and after that, we unloaded our ships there and loaded back up to go on this. We didn't know what we were doing, but the way it turned out.
You didn't know where you were going?
No, not then. We were only there 2 days. They gave us liberty the first night, and it was blacked out, the city. And you just walk in the streets and walk in the pubs and places, you know, it's dark. Just walk through a blanket, and then it'd be light inside, blue light, most of them. Then we started loading up the next day on John Erickson. John Elliott. And the number on that thing was 13. We remarked about that.
Yeah, okay.
And we got that loaded up, and while we were loading that, they'd take the hatch covers off, you know how that was, you was in the Navy, wasn't you?
Yes.
And they, guys would let those cargo nets down, you know, in the holds to unload all that, and they knocked off 4 guys and killed them before we ever left there. Well, I don't know, Coxman, who were running that.
Oh, accidentally.
Cargo, yeah, accidentally. That's a bad sign, I thought, really, though.
Mm-hmm.
So then it turned out, then we left New Zealand, and then we landed out there and practice landing in 2 little islands before we got to Guadalcanal.
Were there any enemy on those?
No, they weren't any enemy. They just wanted to practice, I suppose. We done a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
These Higgin boats, you go over the side of them in the ocean and wade in.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of coral reef around there, and then the boats couldn't even get up close to the island, you know.
Now, is that where you were practicing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we only done it 2 days, and then they took us back on board the ship, and we headed for Guadalcanal, and
Did you know you were going to Guadalcanal?
never did know till the morning till we hit it.
Did they tell you about what you were going to run into?
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Well, I was scared. I think we all
It
were.
wouldn't be human if you weren't.
Yeah. That was, well, let's see, I think I was supposed to, they had it all laid out for us on the 4th wave. The outfit I was in supposed to hit the beach.
What did you go in on? What kind of a ship?
Well, we went in on this John Erickson, not Elliot. We went in on it, but we're going over the side, you see, in these Higgin boats, these small boats.
Mm-hmm.
But when we got to the island, they bombarded it from 4 o'clock in the morning. Our Navy did, the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Jap airplanes came in before we got off this ship, and I suppose they killed the pilot, or he's one of those suicide fellows, and he dived into the ship that I was on, this Elliot, and went into the hole we had open, you know, unloading it, and the fire broke out. So Marines had to go over the side, so that's what I was speaking about, practicing jumping over so it's 30 foot down to the water.
You jumped 30 foot into the water?
Yeah.
Was that part of your landing, or were you just getting off because you'd been
they had to get off because the ship was afire.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to actually hitch rides off the other Marines coming in. You know, the ocean was full of boats, little boats. And they'd pick us up, a few of us, each one could haul a few.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hit that water, you don't think you're ever coming back up. You had your rifle, you had to take it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I mean, you really go down in there.
You went in feet first.
Yeah.
And
They trained us how to hit the water, you know.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I know you have.
On this ship that was hit, did it get sunk?
No, they got the fire put out and beached it, pulled it into the beach and left it set. And then a few weeks later, they took it out of there. I don't know when,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't sink. But they got all of us off of there, and the Navy guys, of course, they stayed. And I imagine they put the fire out.
Yeah. Did you ever hear how many men we lost when that hit?
No, I never did.
But several.
Yeah, bound to.
Yeah, I don't believe that I ever had read about that, Burley.
No, I don't imagine.
No.
I've got several books, and some of them never mention that I've read.
I see. Okay, you're in the water.
And then we hit
That
actually
take us-
hitchhiker right in, is what we really do.
To the beach.
Uh-huh. And then we were told by our commanders on the ship to stay at the beach till we all get there, or we'd be all, you know, scattered. We know where we got. And so as soon as we hit the beach, we stay, and the other guys go on in that we ride with. And then when our whole outfit gets together, then we start unloading ships, really, trying to get ammo in. We work 3 days and nights and never stopped unloading.
Mm.
And if we hadn't, we'd really been in bad shape. It turned out to be later.
Took you 3 days and 3 nights to land there at Guadalcanal.
And get all that provisions off, you know, ammo and
Mhm.
food. And they wouldn't let you stop working. I mean, they kept right on you. We had air raids going on, always unloading ship, but we never stopped, just kept going.
Mhm. Was the resistance from the enemy pretty heavy?
Wasn't real bad, but after we got in there, they were surprised, and then there's only a few on the beach.
You
were back-
mean the Japanese?
Yeah. They were back inland more than on the beach. Now after we took the 9 square mile perimeter is all we had there. And the airfield, Henderson Field, was in that 9 square mile.
Was that your objective?
Yeah.
To take
To
Henderson
get that
Field?
and hold the island.
Okay, when you hit the beach and you got 3 days and unloaded, what did you do? What was your job? You were a machine gunner or?
No, I was in a rifle battalion. I mean squad. All we done was hold this perimeter. And then at night, they'd take raiding parties and go out into the jungles and hunt the Japs. And of course, you could find them pretty well. They were all over the place.
How'd you find them?
Well, they didn't fight only at night. They wouldn't fight in the daytime. And you could find their camps. We had scouts that go out, early in the daytime and find their camps. And then they'd maneuver around and get the general, I suppose, or whoever there. They'd maneuver around, surround some of these Japs would be in a valley or something, and we'd be up on the ridges where we'd get. And then they would try to, at night, they'd come yelling out of there, and we'd just really pick them off like flies.
Did you have hand-to-hand combat?
Before it was over, yeah.
With bayonets? That close to them?
On the beach, yeah.
On the beach?
They landed, they called them Imperial Marines one time behind our line at night. And we were, of course, fighting the other direction, and they would come in from the sea. And then we had machine gun emplacements, of course, and they thought that we wiped them out, really. There's about 500 of them.
You wiped them all out?
Wiped them all. They didn't have any way else to go. I mean, they just at our mercy. They landed there and they couldn't retreat. Of course, they killed several of our guys. But
did you get hit in any way?
Never did.
You never got hit through all of this?
Never did.
We're lucky.
Lucky, right.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us about the conditions, which it is documented in books and so forth, of the living conditions on Guadalcanal for our troops.
Well, after the first 2 or 3 weeks, we run low on food, very low, and then the ships couldn't get in because the Japs was on the sea out there. We couldn't get any supplies in. They bomb or sink us, supply boats, trying to get in to bring us more provisions. And we got down to where all we had was what we captured off of them, fish heads and rice primarily, in the chow dumps that they had. And then when that run out, there was a Sergeant Theodore, was a Russian by birth, I guess, in our outfit. And myself and another sergeant captured one of these canoes, they call them. And we'd fill those cans up with explosives at night and put wicks in them, fuses. We'd roll this canoe out in the ocean there and we'd drop those charges in there, and the barracuda, stun them big old barracuda, and then we'd jump in the ocean and throw them up in the boat. We done that for 2 weeks, I think. Fed a whole battalion that way. Just barracuda steak, but that's a premium.
I've never read anything about that either.
No, I don't suppose.
Yeah.
No,
well, it's better than starving today. Huh?
Oh, I'd reckon. Then they had that old dry powdered milk, and they'd get, we down to 2 meals a day. They had some kind, I don't know how they'd make it. It was terrible. And then had those great big old bugs that get in that while he's trying to eat it. Big, I don't know what they'd ever play. So we were all down to, I think I weighed about 110 pounds. We all had malaria. I had it 18 times before I finally got rid of it here in the States. And yellow jaundice and diarrhea.
Yeah.
And
Burley, I know back several years ago when we were working together for the cooperative here, you mentioned one evening we were visiting just a little bit about this, not in depth as much as we're pleased you're able to share with us today, but where there was a Japanese party out on the beach. I guess they'd been into the sake.
Yeah.
And they were having a big time. And can you elaborate on that story?
Well, we just, about 20 of us got around there and run them out of there. Killed, I think, 15 of them and got what food they had left. And then the others went across the river, Tannery River there on the island, got away. But we got some food that way.
Fish heads?
Fish heads and rice, and that's about all we ever had. I still like rice all today.
Not fish heads?
No,
I
no, I don't like them.
Yeah. Well, anything tastes good when you're starving to death.
That's right.
What kind of, you were low on ammunition, what did you use to annihilate the Japanese that were out on the beach cooking fish heads?
We had grenades, and so we still had some ammo. And then we had the bayonet, of course, a few of them, after we got after them. And they were, some enemy, they were tricky.
Were they tricky?
Oh, I'd say they had those great big leaves, they call them elephant ears, that grow on those trees. They had a stem, great big stem, and they were little fellows, a lot of them. And they'd cut those off and and hide behind them and crawl. They could crawl right up to you if you wasn't careful. Behind that leaf, you never would see them. So you had to be careful all the time. And a lot of guys got wise to that, and they just shoot the leaf, of course, and that'd be a dead Jap there after they killed a few of us.
Were the snipers up in trees too?
Yeah, of course, they're terrible. We learned how to get them too, of course, after they killed a lot of guys. There'd be 2 or 3 just hit the deck and roll real hard and just fill a tree full of ammo.
Really, a couple of nights ago, I was watching television, and there was a television program on there about Carlson's Raiders. Does that ring a bell with you?
Yes, it does. They were one of the elite fighting forces that we had, really.
Was that their commanding officer's name?
Carl, yeah, right.
Did you ever see him?
No, not really.
Not really.
At a distance, but not up close. They came through our, division there a lot of times to get reinforcement, get more food and ammo. And they were out on the fighting all the time out ahead of us, I think, in different islands. That island chain through there's lots of islands, I didn't realize. A lot of them, and they were on them, and then they'd come to the island canal there and get reinforced, They'd lose a lot of men.
Now these documentaries or these movies that we see, do they depict pretty well what conditions were like?
Pretty well.
Do they?
Yeah.
Rough?
I don't think they're quite as bad as what they were. I don't believe they are.
What was, when it was the worst, which was probably, you told us about when you were going down and getting the fish heads and no food, low on ammunition, what went through your mind?
Well, you think you're never coming home, really. You think this is it, so you just sort of get that in your brain, that you're not going to come home and just live with that, really. And then, I don't know, you think about home a lot, of course. But you're scared to death all the time you're over there. I was. And I think everybody was, really, that was in it, because it's pretty rough.
Yeah, it is. It's like you said a while ago, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Really. Now your objective was Henderson Field.
Yeah.
Why was that so important?
Well, they wanted to get that so we could get some airplanes in there to fight, I imagine, their Navy, to get control of the sea out there. And now there's some tiger sharks fighting, they said, I don't know if that's true. In China, they got their planes landed there, about 10 of them, that were stationed on a carrier, and they got bombed or something. They couldn't land to get back there. So they landed there on Henderson Field. And they were flying those Airacobra, and Captain Foss was their commander.
Oh, yes.
He was the one at the football league, I think, wasn't he, later on in life? Now, they were there when they came there. We had, they'd go up there every day and meet those Japs. We were bombed every day for 130 days, I think it was.
On Guadalcanal?
Yeah. They never quit bombing us.
How many total days were you on Guadalcanal?
Well, let's see, about 6 months altogether. And then, them pilots would go up there and fight those guys coming in. They'd drop those bombs a lot of times, not on us, they'd get scared, Jack wouldn't drop them before they ever got to us, which helped. And then they'd tell radio back and tell them what altitude that they were flying at. And then our artillery and aircraft guns could set their fuses. Otherwise, we just had to guess what they were coming in at, and they couldn't hardly hit them. But that helped a lot when that China bunch came in there.
I see.
But they didn't last very long. They soon shot all those planes up. They shelled that Henderson Field one night from the sea.
The Japs?
Japanese. They started in about dark. We were in foxholes right there in front of it. And you could watch the flash out there and count the seconds, tell about how many miles they're out there. And then they shelled that till morning with 14-inch and 8-inch and 5-inch shells just continually. And then next morning there wasn't any planes that would hardly fly. They just tore that airstrip all up. So we run out there the next morning daylight and took those mats and, filled the holes in with bulldozers. Put those airplane mats, that landing strip mats down. We got, I think it was 4 that could fly. That's all out of it. There's only 8. They knocked out the other 4. But that night, boy, I never will forget that night.
Tell us about it.
They just shelled us all night long. Scared to death. And you look through those slits where the machine gun was, on the watch out there in the ocean, them big lights flashing. And then you hear those shells go right over our head, because we were right at the field, right in front of it. You hear them click, click, click over your head, light right behind you. You just hope that they didn't miscalculate, land on you instead of the...
You mean, was this Americans that were...
No, it's Japs.
That was still Japs?
Yeah.
They were trying to take back Henderson Field?
Right.
Did they take it back?
No, they never did. They got it back once, but we took it back the next day.
Tell us about that.
Well, they came in there after the shelling and run the guys out of there and over to the lines where we were. We had that line built so that the one in front would fall back to the one we were in. And then that made a double strength, really. And then after they got to us, well, there's enough, firepower there that we wiped them and most of them out. And the rest of them retreated. And they wouldn't, of course, the daytime comes, they leave. They won't fight in the daytime, and never did. Everything they done, they want to do at night. They get high on that socket and yell like a bunch of Apaches at night. And then charge and make some of the foolish maneuvers you ever saw. They'd be on the Tannery River. We used to, at night, have to go down there so they couldn't cross it into the airstrip. So we'd set up a line down there along this side of the river, and then at night they'd be on the other side. And they'd tell us not to fire unless we knew there's some Japs coming across there. And we'd sit there all night long and wait. And then about 1 or 2 o'clock, somebody would throw a rock or 2 out in there, in the water, and boy, you hear them scrambling. And then we'd open fire, and then next morning there'd be a bunch of dead Japs in the water. So they just, they weren't too good at fighting, I don't really think. They fought in small bunches. Of course, there wasn't any big fight like over in Germany. A lot of small engagements, really.
Yeah. Did either side take prisoners?
We had a few, very few, just to get information. And then there for a while after they, a lot of times they'd come in and act like they wounded one of them and want help. And then you go to help them, and a bunch of raise up out in the bushes there and kill the Marines, that were trying to help. So they passed the word, take no prisoners after that for a long time. So after that, we didn't take any.
You had to do away with them.
Yeah.
That was your only safe way to protect yourself.
Yeah, they were tricky.
Yeah, they sure were.
Very tricky.
Yeah. Okay, now, one time you mentioned, too, that you were able to see from Guadalcanal the Battle of the Midway.
That's right.
What did you see?
It was like a big 4th of July celebration, only a lot bigger than anything you ever had. The ships out there, you had to guess whose side you was on. No, you didn't know. See all those star shells going off in the air, and then you could see the projector. We was laying in the ground. You could see they'd arc up in the air and then go back in to hit the target. Of course, a lot of them never hit targets. But then they'd hit a ship. It'd be an explosion, just light up the whole sky. But I imagine they were, I don't know how many miles out there, 30 or 40, I imagine. But it was a terrible sight, but beautiful to look at it from where we were. But it was next, about, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, maybe a week, I can't remember exactly. After that, there were bodies washed in to the beach. And a lot of them were legs and arms off where the sharks would eat them, you know, tore them up.
Both Americans and Japanese?
Both.
Mm-hmm.
And we took, the battalion came there with bulldozers and just made a great big pit, and they buried all those people in this. They were ripe, you know, they were terrible.
Bad shape. Yeah.
Decayed and eaten up and blowed up. Awful looking.
Yeah, it's an awful sight, I know, Burley.
Yeah, I got into it one day on the burial detail. That's all worse than the war.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as far as make you sick.
Yeah. Digging mass graves.
Yeah.
And,
we had to, well, these were individual graves for our own guys.
for our guys.
They small, just dig a grave.
Could they identify most of them?
Yeah, they had their dog tags. And of course, the officers took all those and, I suppose, notified the people back here
Mm-hmm.
from the dog tag.
Well, what else can you tell us about the Battle of Guadalcanal?
I don't know, let's see,
Did you lose, how many were in your, what you might say, your outfit, like a company or a squad?
Well, I was in Company C, which was 5 squads of 12 men each, which would be 60 men,
Mm-hmm.
and a lieutenant, you know.
In charge of the 60?
Yeah. And each squad had a squad leader.
And that would be a sergeant?
That's a sergeant.
Yeah, did you do that?
No, I was a corporal.
You were a corporal.
Mm-hmm.
How many out of the 12 did you lose?
5.
You lost 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of guys cracked up, they called it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
back then. We had one fellow who was a wrestler in Chicago. He thought he would never be afraid of anything, and he went berserk. They had to put him in a straitjacket. They hauled him off the island.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them. We had one fellow had landed there. He was an officer, had 6 guns tied down, you know, like a western. He didn't last too long.
Mm-hmm.
So some that you thought were going to be heroes turned out to be they weren't. They were scarier than we were, really.
Yeah, that brings up on people that were injured. Was there medical?
Yeah, we had the medics.
Was there an MD somewhere around?
Yeah,
a doctor?
We had a Marine Corps. They called them medics, men and boys.
Mm-hmm.
They were first aid guys. And then they had battalion, you know, doctors behind them.
Yeah, they were out of the Navy.
Yeah, right, Navy doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we were attached to the Navy. And Bull Halsey, the guy said he was going to, they took our pin off the map in Washington, they said, I don't know. But Halsey said he was going to get us off the island some way. So he finally did.
But that was after it was secure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can remember back when this took place, Burley, that in the newspapers, it was a touch and go proposition all that time. Did you have any way to know what was going on, really?
Not really. We just knew it was bad, you know, the condition that we were in.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that we couldn't get any supplies in there, so we knew that the Japanese probably had control of the water yet,
Mm-hmm.
out in front. But other than that, we didn't know a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. At this time, we'll take a short pause. Burley, we're still on Guadalcanal, and is there anything that you've thought of during our break here that additional information about Guadalcanal?
Well, not a whole lot, Clare, but probably I missed a few things, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember any right offhand.
They did parachute supplies into you?
No, eventually the Navy got control out there after this battle of Midway, where they finally got some transports came in.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember how many, but there were several came in after that.
Mm-hmm.
All we needed was to get control, you see, of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And after the Midway battle, the Japanese, I think, cleared out of there fairly well. And then we got some supplies came in.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, ammunition, food, and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Some good food tasted good, didn't it?
Very good. And then we get, when we'd unload them, they'd come out and get details to unload off the ships. Well, you volunteer for that job because you get them Navy guys to feed you while you're unloading. They throw stuff down to you, fresh food and apples and that kind of stuff.
Burley, did you find that even after the island was secure that there were Japanese back in the hills or in the jungles and
Yeah, they were
hiding and still shooting at you?
Yeah, they were way back in there, and they had a bunch of guns over in caves. I expect it's 30 miles from where we were. And they'd run those guns out at night and fire shells in there at us. And in the daytime they'd run back in there, but they weren't too damaging. They'd just keep the morale down, from hearing those shells land around you all the time. But eventually they sent a squad of demolition experts, went in there at night and sabotaged all those guns. I don't know, they got the firing mechanism some way out of them and destroyed them. So after that, it was pretty secure, really. And then the air raids we went through, I think it was 132 air raids while we were there. And that stopped pretty well. They'd send those, they call them Wharf Machine Charlies in there at night and just fly overhead, real slow, just to try to keep you awake, which they did. But they didn't drop any bombs, they just terrorized you, really.
Was there concern of you and your buddies of so-called, what's referred to the Persian Gulf crisis, friendly fire? We
had the examples of that, only be our artillery instead of airplane. They would, we'd be at night a lot of times real close up on one another fighting, and they'd call for firepower. Well, they would sometimes misjudge, the artillery a little bit and land right on us until they get word back by radio to lift the fire. While we would be subject to getting hit there that way. And we did get a few hit.
Did you? Did you lose some people from it?
We lost several.
Yeah.
And then I'll never forget, one night they stampeded a bunch of cattle down from the hills. Japanese run them down over the top of and they was in foxholes, and several guys got run over by cows in the night. Then some of them got stepped on, hurt pretty bad. Cow step on him.
Yeah.
And I was in a foxhole with a kid by the name of Matuzak. He was from Detroit, and he was scared to death of them cattle. I'll never forget that.
One come close to you?
Yeah, they jumped right over the hole we was in. Of course, I suppose the cow, could see that foxhole better than a human.
Yeah.
The whole kind of experience.
The Japs try anything. But
yeah, that's right.
Did you find it necessary at any time to use, get rid of the enemy flamethrowers?
We've done that. We had the old style flamethrowers. We used them on pillboxes. It took two men over the one we had to run. One was a trigger guy, and the other guy had to carry the tank with the fuel in it. We had to crawl on your hands and knees to get there, up through the jungles, and you had to get within 30 foot. Them old flamethrowers weren't too successful. You had to get too close, they could usually see you. But we used them and used it. I never run the trigger. I carried the tank several times. And you had to crawl on your stomach just like a snake and get up there close enough to use this thing. But if you ever got close enough, that was it. They were dead.
Did you use them on the beach where the Japs were cooking fish heads?
No.
Did you use any flamethrowers there?
Not there. We used them to get out these pillboxes after we got inland. They had a lot of pillboxes set up back in the jungle. That jungle, and if you never were there, it's nothing like it around here. It's thick. You had to chop your way through it with bayonets and machetes. And they had some kind of a big, it was like a gooseberry bush, and it had burrs maybe a half-inch long. And they would just tear you apart. They'd taw and fall down over you. And if they got a hold of your ear or something, you'd just raise you right up. It's terrible.
And the mosquitoes were in there that carried the malaria.
We had a lot of guys had malaria. I don't know about everybody, really.
Yeah. At that time, did they have Ativan that you
Yeah,
took?
we took Hatterman all the time. We were all yellow
Mm-hmm.
from taking Hatterman. Yeah, if you had, that was a preventative, supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of guys that pack them in ice. They so hot, fever.
Well, let's hit you off Guadalcanal now. Then where'd you go?
Well, we went from there to Australia, Brisbane. Supposed to go there to rest up and get ready to go back again someplace. And they made a mistake there. They, according to the book, they put us there in Brisbane, and that place was just full of mosquitoes. And I remember we was only there, I think, 3 or 4 days, or maybe a week. But all we done there was lay in our sacks with mosquito nets over us and go to eat. And in this galley where we eat, there was a wooden building, and under the table, those mosquitoes bite right through the clothes. And the dungaree jackets, they could bite right through. They were huge. So they soon took us out of there and took us to Melbourne, the southern part of Australia, which is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Took us back on a mountain back there at camp. And we stayed there, I think, 3 months around that.
Yeah. What kind of shape were you in when you came off Guadalcanal?
We were all terrible.
What'd you weigh?
I think I weighed 110. We had to climb up cargo nets to get on the ships, and I couldn't even make it, and a lot of guys couldn't get up the net. We was so weak. And the Navy guys come down the net and meet us halfway pull us up over the side to get on the ship. But it was, we were all in bad shape. Had malaria and dysentery. Jungle rot was terrible, and I had that on my hands. A lot of them had it on their feet. And everybody had jungle rot someplace.
Yeah. Jumping ahead a little bit here, but I'll ask you before I forget it. Have you ever had this jungle rot or any of this come back in later life?
Yeah, I've had it here at home after I came home. I'd finally got rid of it by going to a specialist in Indianapolis, skin specialist. Doc Peacock here in Colorado I think he was in the Navy, or this buddy of his was a
Dermatologist?
Yeah, over in Indianapolis. He sent me over there and took x-ray treatment. I think I went back over there for 3 years, and at least he eliminated it. I haven't had it since.
How about the malaria?
I had it after I came home about 5 different times, but I haven't had it for a long time now.
That's good. How long did you stay in Australia?
I think 3 months, around 3 months.
Did you gain some weight?
Got pretty good shape again. We had calisthenics every day, and they built us up. And we eat like awful good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, real good. We had no heavy duty though, just recuperating. And after we were there a long time, there's a beautiful country, Australia, where we were. I think most of the country's along the beach, not too much inland, but it's really pretty.
You get liberty there?
We had liberty every night. We wanted to go, and we all went. And a lot of racetracks, and every little town had a racetrack. Any town the size of Crawfordville would have a racetrack.
What would race on it? Horses?
Horses, yeah. And those Australian people, the whole family would go to the races. I stayed with a family there for 2 weeks. They'd just act like you one of them. Stayed there. You stay there all night with them and go to races with them, just like live with them. Really.
They feed you?
Oh yeah. They thought we saved them. They thought the Japanese were going to take
them. Probably did.
Yeah, they realized that.
Yeah. MacArthur was on Australia too at that time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Did you get anywhere near him?
Never did.
You don't know where he, of course, probably didn't know where he was.
No, never.
Okay, you're getting your health back and getting some R&R there in Australia. Then what happened?
Well, we went from, loaded us up after we got ready to leave there and went to New Guinea. Landed on New Guinea, and the Army pretty well had it sold up when we got there, so I think we were there only 2 or 3 weeks. Had several air raids there, but nothing like Guadalcanal. And then we went from, they loaded us up, well, I don't know how long we were right in New Guinea, a short period of time. They loaded us aboard ship after that, and they went to New Britain, Cape Gloucester, and landed. And that was bigger island than Guadalcanal, but the resistance wasn't near as bad there.
Did you make a landing there?
Yeah, we landed there. And the Japanese there were back inland quite a ways. But after we landed there, of course, they wanted to get us off of there. So we encountered a lot of fighting there, but it was a different kind than it was on the island.
Hand to hand?
Some of it was, yeah. Some bayonet, and then the boy, one of my buddies had a 50 caliber machine gunner, and they attacked us one night, and I think next morning he had 25 bodies in front of his gun. So we had the perimeter there, we had crossfire. We had better equipment then too, you know, than we had on the island. And we'd set those guns up so they crossfired in a pattern in the daytime, and if they heard anything coming, well, they just turn them on, and it was solid lead out in front of it, so we didn't have a problem there as we did have. And then one night they maneuvered a whole bunch of those Japanese down in the valley on Bloody Knoll, they called it. And the Marines, we were all up on top of this. It was just like a big bowl is what it was. We were all around the edge of that bowl, and the Japs were down in that thing. They had camp down in there, and that night they all of them just come rolling up out of that gorge trying to, and we just sat up there and pulled a pin on a grenade and rolled them over the hill. And they just kept coming, and it was terrible. I think the next day there was, 592 dead Japanese. I don't think it was over 4 Americans got killed, the Marines. They just like suicide, really.
Yeah.
But somebody was pretty smart to get that all figured out. I don't know who done it. Some of our officers, I suppose.
Yeah, that was a great victory for you.
Yeah, we were always outnumbered, 10 to 1 or more, every battle they had. And a lot of times they would have the advantage, it turned out, but they didn't. They keep coming. They quit for some reason, but they would really have the advantage a lot of times. But they just, I don't know why they quit. I reckon they thought they were getting defeated.
Where did you go from? No, what island was this on?
This was Cape Gloucester on New Britain. But after we got that fairly well secured, now they'd take us at night in these small boats, and we go out and go up to a place called Good Enough Island. It was a small island, and what they was going to isolate Raboul. You probably heard
I remember that.
And Bougainville. There was a peninsula there, only about 2 miles across, and we going to put a line in there and isolate that place, and just let those Japs starve over there. So we landed there at Good Enough, and they had you could drive a ship right up to the beach, that real deep natural harbor. And they had pillboxes in the hill there with I don't know what size of millimeter guns they were, but when we came in there, they started lobbing them shells out at us, and those coxswains that run those boats would zigzag through there. They'd drop some of those shells in those small boats, but they never hit the one I was in. And then when we got to the beach, boy, I mean, they had us pinned down there. So we stayed there and right on the edge of the water and fired at this till it came with a tank, a small tank. They got that tank unloaded there, and he blowed that one box that was holding us down. He put a shell in it and got rid of it. And then we started going up, and that tank got marred down in the swamp. And of course, we had to cut trees and everything else to get that thing out. And then we finally got that out and drove those Japs, and they left. And I suppose they went back to where they came from, Bougainville, I suppose. We got that secured, and then they took us off and then brought some Army guys in there to hold that. And then we went back to Gloucester, Cape Gloucester. But that night when we went up there, it was funny, I expect 12 boatloads of us. And the guy we were riding with got lost from the others.
My goodness.
Woke up about daylight, and we was way up there. It wasn't where we were supposed to be, but we could see the others way back down there. And of course, the Japanese were on the beach there. You could see them up there. Of course, it wasn't daylight yet. He turned that dude around and we caught up with the rest of them finally. But,
You were concerned being isolated up
yeah,
like that.
that's right.
You know,
Especially that close to land.
yeah, where they could have gotten hold of you. After that island was secure, then where did you go?
Well, we stayed there at Camp Gloucester for a long time, really.
What do you mean long time, Burley?
Oh, I don't know, 3 months, I imagine.
Oh, did you?
And it rained there. We were building that thing up for landing, you know, for later on, I imagine, camps for Army or somebody. It rained there, I think, 3 weeks solid. Just, boy, it was never saw it. Just rain. And all the roads were swamps, and we had to, they'd take them Jeeps would get hung up in them trucks, and they'd winch themselves out on trees with a winch on the front of them, you know, wind themselves out. And then after we went from there, we went to Pendleton Island, landed on it after we left Cape Gloucester. And after we got to Pendleton, it wasn't too bad either. It was mostly inland fighting. But they started rotating us back home from Pendleton after we were there about 2 weeks, I guess. I was over there, I think, 27 months altogether, a little over 2 years.
What was the date on this? Pellew, did you call it?
Pendleton, yeah.
Pellew?
Mm-hmm.
What would have been approximately the date of that?
That'd be about 1944. Around that 44, yeah, 44. And then they, if you had good conduct, you got home a little quicker than the guys that went AWOL when they're here in the States. And I was lucky enough to, I didn't go AWOL.
You behaved yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got one of the first ones to get to leave there, really.
You come back on a ship?
We got on the West Point. Well, that is a nice ship. It runs real fast. Didn't take us too long to get back home, come back to California.
Then what happened?
Well, we were still all run down. They put us there in Pendleton, Camp Pendleton, and turned us loose on the chow again. Just they kept the galley full of peanut butter and jelly and all kinds of drinks. Eat 24 hours a day if you wanted to. Besides 3 meals. They wouldn't send us home because our blood was, well, they had blotters. You probably tested your blood, and ours was probably 80. So they wouldn't let us go home. We got it up to 90 or 95. And then we just eat, really. Well, there, we didn't do anything. Laid around, go on liberty if you wanted to. And I was there till, of course, I joined up in the regular and had to serve 4 years. Some of the reserves got sent home, of course, after they got healthy. But I had to stay till my time was up. And after that, I went to, they put me in the carpenter shop there at Camp Pendleton. There's about 50 civilians work out of there. Carpenters, civilian carpenter, and I worked sharpening saws. They had a shop in the back of it, automatic sharpeners. And then they splice those meat saws for the galleys and big chainsaw, bandsaw. That's all I done there. Till my time was up, and I could have went back. After that, well, no, I didn't. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. We came back to the East Coast.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
From San Francisco?
We landed there at the East Coast.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. We went back to, well, they put us in the hospital there at, in Virginia. Camp, I can't think of the name of that camp. And we were stationed there for a while, and then was at, from there went to Yorktown, Virginia, Naval Mine Depot there. All I done there was work in the carpenter shop there, and patrolled that river at nighttime with a civilian in a pickup truck up and down the York River, I think it is.
Were you still in the Marines when the war ended?
Right. Yeah, it was, they were wanting to send some of us back the second time.
That was my next question.
Well, yeah. And I got malaria out. The malaria keep you out for 7 days off the list. And I'd get malaria and it'd be off for 7 days. And before those 7 days up, I'd get it again, so I actually saved me from going back. And then the war ended, and that stopped that.
When did you get back to Crawfordsville?
Gosh, let's see, January. Got out the 5th and drove from California in an old Model A Ford, me and my wife. Took a week, I think, to get here. So it'll be about January the 12th along there sometime.
1946.
1946.
Yeah. And you mentioned your wife now. When did you get married?
We got married in Virginia in 1945, January the 15th.
Who did you marry?
Married Kate Farrell from here in Crawfordville.
How many children did you have?
Had 4 daughters.
4 daughters. What are their names?
Well, the oldest one's Jennifer. And
What's her married name now? Give us their...
she married Jim France.
All right.
And she lived in Bloomington.
All right.
He works for Bell Telephone. And then I married, the next girl was Jessica Wonder. She married Rick Wonder. They live in Evanston, Illinois.
Okay.
And then Rebecca, the next girl, Gentry, married Gary Gentry, and they live in Michigan. And he works in the computer, vice president for a computer outfit in Michigan.
Okay.
They live in Brighton, suburb of Detroit. And then the youngest daughter is Elizabeth, married Charles Nave. She teaches school at the South Montgomery. And he works up here at the, this place out here on the hill. Not Hoosier Crown, it used to be Cork and Seal.
Cork and Seal. How many grandchildren do you have?
Got 6 grandchildren.
Boys or girls?
Well, I got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 3 girls and 3 boys. I think that's right.
Right. And about 6 months ago, we lost Kate, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a sad time for all.
Yes, it is. I know. Burley, do you ever have reunions or get together with any of your old Marine buddies?
Oh, they have reunions all the time. I haven't attended one yet. I should, but I haven't. I get letters from a lot of them and Christmas cards. And we had one, and I used to visit back and forth from Flat River, Missouri. That were him and his wife, Kate, and this girl followed Glenn and I. After we came back to the States, we got to go from the East Coast to West, and they followed us out there, and we lived out there together in California while we were still in the Marines.
Have you ever heard from your commanding officer?
No, I haven't.
What was his rank?
Captain.
He was a
Hall.
captain. Oh.
Yeah.
Did your commanding officers all of them make it through the war without losing their life?
We lost several captains. It seemed like the officers got hit more than anybody. But they were good officers. They were a lot
They
of
fought.
them. Yeah, they were leading their men, a lot of them. Of course, General Rupertus was the general on the island. And
What was his name again?
Rupertus.
Rupertus. I see.
Yep.
Yep. Well, Burley, is there anything else that
Well, I don't know.
you can recall from your days in the Marines? I know it's a horrible nightmare and a hideous thing, but I can say for the Montgomery County Historical Society and for people in future generations, we appreciate what you did for America and appreciate you coming in and sharing your story with us.
Well,
Thank you,
glad
Burley,
to be.
very much.